The Verdict, a Sidebar production, hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. As a part of its traditional and continuing commitment to public and community service, Crow and Dunlevy sponsors The Verdict. Also sponsored by Delta Dental, Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, and C.H. Guernsey and Company. Each week on The Verdict, we present an objective discussion of contemporary and legal issues, topical issues that will affect Oklahomans in their daily lives. The Verdict, a Sidebar production.
And welcome to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett, glad to have you with us, and if you're a regular viewer, you know at least a couple of things. First of all, that this is my co-host, Kent Myers, and secondly, Kent, we're on a brand new station this week.
We are, and thrilled to be. Steve Esom and his crew have been very kind to us here at KSBI. They've built us a brand new, beautiful set, got new equipment. We are going to be, believe it or not, folks, on HD TV, probably by the time this show is airing, if not soon thereafter, but of course they can watch that on either the regular TV set or an HD TV set if they happen to have one. We're just really excited about getting this additional new season started this year with some great guests, great subjects, and something we're really looking forward to bringing to our viewing public.
Well, let's go ahead and take our seats, and we can find them.
Yes, here we go.
Now, a lot of people may be tuning into the first time and think, is this their first ever show? Quite the contrary.
Well, it might look like it, but it isn't. As a matter of fact, this is our 65th show. We've been doing The Verdict for quite some time. We try to talk about legal and social issues that are of interest to the people. And this week we've got a very interesting show with a very, very interesting and familiar person by the name of Frank Keating, the governor of the state of Oklahoma.
First of two shows. How did you differentiate between the shows? What's going to be our focus today?
Today we're going to be talking about some current issues that the governor's dealing with. Principally, although not exclusively, we're going to be talking about his appointment to the National Review Board of the Catholic bishops. Talking about the sexual abuse scandal that is raging through the Catholic Church now, and what his role in that is going to be, what he's going to try to accomplish, and who his partners are going to be on that National Review Board and what kind of power they're going to have. We're also going to be talking about some other subjects of political interest, where the governor stands on certain positions, and try to just see where he is today. In the shows to come, the one show to come next week, we'll be talking to him to kind of review his governorship, his 8 years of being governor of the state of Oklahoma. We're going to be talking about past disappointments, past successes, but we're going to mix the future with that as well. We're going to talk about what he's going to be doing in the future when he's no longer governor of the state of Oklahoma, and what political plans he may have coming in the office in the future.
Well, let's get started. We'll take a break, bring out the governor. You're watching The Verdict with Mick Cornett and Kent Myers.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
The Verdict is pleased to have as a sponsor C.H. Guernsey and Company, providing architectural and engineering services to clients throughout the U.S. and around the world.
And Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play, leaving it 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go for it. Wiggins had to do the kicking. Here's the snap, and the kick is away.
We are C.H. Guernsey and Company. We provide engineering, architecture, and consulting services to clients across the nation and around the world. Our corporate headquarters are located in Oklahoma City, and we have branch offices across the country, including Tulsa. We have provided quality service to clients for nearly 75 years. At Guernsey, we believe in quality work and unconditional client satisfaction. To learn more about C.H. Guernsey and Company, log on to our website at chguernsey.com.
And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers is going to introduce our guest. Kent?
Well, we are really pleased today to have the Honorable Frank Keating, the Governor of the state of Oklahoma, join us here on The Verdict, our first show from KSBI. And we're very proud of our new set governor and our new host station and broadcasting both in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Governor Keating has been in the news considerably recently, even more than perhaps usual, because of what's going on in the Catholic Church. Governor Keating has been said a lot of times, a long time, lifetime Catholic. But he said something the other day that I was not aware of. He was Catholic educated from the very beginning to the very end almost. Went to Montecasina Middle School in Tulsa, went to Cassia Hall High School in Tulsa, and Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Governor Keating also has an extensive law enforcement background, starting with the FBI, then going to being a prosecutor, both state and federal, and then having a supervisory role in law enforcement agencies across this country, including the Secret Service, the Marshals Service, and other agencies. So he comes to this position with a very well-defined enforcement role, and certainly into a situation that may very well call for some severe, strict enforcement. Governor Keating, welcome to The Verdict.
Thanks, Kent. Vic, good to see you, and these are nice digs. I'm impressed.
They really
nice.
are. They've
It's
done
not the governor's mansion, but it's pretty
No,
nice.
it's close. It really is close.
well. We cleaned it up just for you.
You did?
Yeah, we did. Governor, we want to talk today about a subject that is somewhat somber, I suspect. What's going on in the Catholic Church today. We all know that there have been revelations that have come to light for many of people who are not Catholic relatively recently. I want to call up a graphic now of a cartoon from the Daily Oklahoman, June 18th this year, showing you, designating you as a disaster specialist heading from the Murrah bombing to a church that looks like it's teetering. This sounds to me like really what you're going to do is address another disaster. Is that the way you see it?
Well, it is, and I don't mean to be presumptuous at all, because I am a very ordinary person. And when Bishop Gregory, who's the head of the Council of Catholic Bishops in the United States, called me, I said, well, how did you ever find me? I mean, I'm willing to help, willing to do anything, but this is a challenge that I knew nothing about. As a warm and wondrous member of the Catholic Church who always had a very fine experience with the clergy, the Benedictines, the Augustinians, the Jesuits, no one ever prayed on me except PRAYing on me, and I never heard of anybody being PREY'd on at all. So the bishop said, well, we really want the lay people, independent judgment, toughness to be applied. Matter of fact, a law enforcement perspective, if you will. So what the bishops did in Dallas was to basically lay out a charter for the 196-odd dioceses in the United States. Transparency, in other words, no hush money, no private settlements, referral to law enforcement in the event that there is an accusation of child abuse, and zero tolerance, prospectively in the future as well as retrospectively. Anybody with a one strike you're out in their resume, they are out. And that is our challenge, my challenge, to put together a commission, if you will, to establish a national office to see to it that all the dioceses in the United States establish such systems. And this is very unprecedented for a lay person to be asked, lay people to be asked to do this, but it's one that I think all of us accept very humbly and very prayerfully, because we care very much about how the Catholic Church fares in the United States.
So this is ongoing. It's not a task force with a time limit on it.
No, that's correct. Our first responsibility after we establish an office in Washington is to show all of the dioceses of the United States, every bishop, every cardinal, that a zero tolerance policy will be implemented, that a transparency policy will be implemented, that a law enforcement referral policy will be implemented. And then at the end of the year, we report to the American people and to the bishops together, simultaneously, which dioceses have failed, which dioceses have succeeded. But we look to the local dioceses, as in here in Oklahoma City or in Tulsa, to clean up the mess if there is a mess, to identify errant bishops or priests or practices. What we'll do is establish policy and then make sure that the policy is implemented and enforced.
Let me talk just a minute about the other members of the board. You're the chairman of the review board. Bob Bennett, I guess, is another member, and they recently named a couple of more members.
Well, the membership will be a total of 11. The one thing about Bishop Gregory, who is the president of the conference, an African-American bishop, a very fine gentleman, he said to me, you can have non-Catholics on if you wish. I would suggest maybe 15 people, and you can have religious or lay people. Well, we made the decision, A, they all should be Catholics. Why? Because the church should heal itself. Because a day would come, perhaps, where somebody said, see, that was the Jew that did it, or the Methodist that did it. And I think it's better to have the Catholics heal themselves, because that's 1 out of 4 Americans is a Catholic. Might as well, you know, draw in that pool, which is pretty deep. Secondly, it should be all lay people. There's no reason to have any religious people on it. And thirdly, it should be very small, meaning no more than 9 to 11 people. So we met here in Oklahoma City. Justice Burke, who's on the Court of Appeals of Illinois, Bob Bennett and I.
A woman?
Yes, a woman, as well as a victim, Dr. Bland, who is a 2 PhD, former priest, former abuse victim, is the 4th member of our group, and we sent to the bishop 7 other names. CEOs of companies, distinguished medical professionals, really geographically dispersed, first-rate professionals, and I think perhaps when our viewers are watching this program, others of those names will have been revealed. The reason I can't now is because if they turn us down, if the bishop calls them and they say, no, I can't do it, then they're on the press or in the news having accepted. But these are people that were selected by us as a commission and called by Bishop Gregory, so it is strictly a lay-driven process.
But all the names that have been suggested so far are ones suggested by the commission
That
itself.
is correct. That's correct.
Let me jump in here and get us to our first break. You're watching The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers. We're visiting with the Governor of Oklahoma, Frank Keating. We'll be right back.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all of the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. Oklahoma Lawyers for Children has over 350 of the best attorneys and volunteers in Oklahoma County who donate their time and services to represent children. For more information, call 405-23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
St. Gregory's University has been changing the lives of people like me for 125 years. Affordable, private Catholic education, balanced with dedication to community and service, makes St. Gregory special. We're extremely proud of our students' outstanding academic achievements and our nationally ranked athletic teams. It's when you help a student build a future of balance, integrity, and service that you change a life forever. St. Gregory's, a community for life.
Bringing out the best in each student. That is the simple goal and tradition of Heritage Hall. The focus on the individual shapes the educational experience at Heritage Hall. Each student benefits from small classes, able, dedicated teachers, a solid academic curriculum, and exceptional co-curricular programs of athletics, arts, community service, and other activities, parental involvement, personalized counseling, and the development of responsibility, integrity, and love of learning. If you want education taught with pride, then you want Heritage Hall.
When these kids get to play ball, their heart is there. They're so excited. And they just get to feel like regular kids. What Rotary has made possible with this special field has been just a miracle for us.
Rotary gives people an opportunity to help.
Mick Cornett and Kent Myers back on The Verdict. This week we're having a discussion with the governor. Kent, where are we here?
We're talking about the controversy in the Catholic Church across the country and in some instances across the world, and your position as chairman of this National Review Board. I want to call up another graphic now and call your attention to something that you were quoted as saying in the Sacramento Bee, an interesting newspaper in and of itself. But It says, I'm quite confident that the people on the commission will consider and possibly adopt a very hard view of bishops who move errant clergymen from child to child. It is disgraceful that it happened. Much of the publicity has been about what the individual priests have done with the children, the one-on-one disgraces that have occurred. But you're raising a little different issue here. You're suggesting that the commission may not only look at individual priests' conduct and what ought to happen to them, but what about the bishops that supervise them and that just simply move the problem? Can you tell us what you're thinking about that?
Well, and I think that is appropriate to do, and I'm not prejudging anyone. For example, it may well be that a bishop was told by his senior staff that a particular clergyman who had molested a child, a boy or a girl, has been cured. And the bishop, assuming that's the case, sends that person back into the ministry, and he, in fact, was not cured. So those are perhaps forgivable. But what would be unforgivable is a person who moves a friend or a colleague from child to child to be abused or molested, knowing full well that that person is a threat to a child. Has that occurred? Well, that's the allegation in some circumstances. How frequently or how provable, I don't know. But that's something that we should look at. Now, the document from Dallas, the bishop's charge to me, doesn't mention bishops and the aiding and abetting or the cover-up. But the reality is there's two reasons why we can cover this, in my opinion. First, we have to give an annual report of all the dioceses of America, how they have implemented a zero-tolerance policy. And if they haven't implemented it, in effect, they have permitted a priest to get away or a bishop to get away who participated actively, aiding and abetting a principle in a crime or certainly an evil act, that will be commented upon. And secondly, we're called upon to analyze how this happened. I mean, how could this occur? Was it because we looked the other way and attracted active homosexuals to the priesthood, or pedophile priests, seminarians to the priesthood? Well, I don't know. That's something that probably will be examined. Celibacy means no boyfriends and no girlfriends. So it's not a homosexual issue or a heterosexual issue. It's a celibacy issue. And was there a role of a bishop in permitting a person who was not celibate, who was a predator, to get into the seminary, get into the priesthood, go from parish to parish? These are issues that we must involve ourselves with, and I suspect the members of this committee will be significant enough to make their rulings, findings, and recommendations stick.
Do you think the celibacy vow that a priest has to take is one that needs to be reviewed, or is that something that just ought to stay as it is?
Well, that's, again, not a charge for us. The issue of women priests, the issue of celibacy, all I know is that, as I've indicated, you're supposed to be celibate. You know, whether you have gay propensities or heterosexual propensities, you're supposed to have no girlfriends, no boyfriends, and the decision of celibacy or no celibacy, of course, is that of the Pope. I think probably as a result of the existence of celibacy, there is difficulty in finding the number of priests that we need. Therefore, perhaps the bar was lowered to permit in people that in some circumstances, in better days, you would not get in. But that is something that has to be looked at. I mean, I think a joy of service as a Catholic priest is total service, selfless service to church and to your flock. But that does require celibacy in today's world and has for the last 1,100 years.
I introduced you with an emphasis today on your prosecutorial background because I think that serves you well in the position you're having to assume. But you've used the phrase zero tolerance. How do you envision zero tolerance applying to priests that have had an abusive situation in the past, and certainly one that has one in the future? What does zero tolerance mean? What happens to them?
Well, and this is something that truthfully is not easy, but I always think in terms of the victim. You know, the person who's a perpetrator, the most serious offender in the United States is a fellow human being. So, you know, obviously the law should apply to them. You should be comfortable in the fact that the facts support guilty verdict or the facts support sanctioned action, but I always think in terms of the victim, the person that this person abused or robbed or killed or maimed or what have you. But the policy is very simple. Let's say there's a priest soon to retire, in his 60s or 70s. 30 years ago he molested a child. That person is out of the ministry. Now, is he out of the priesthood? No. Just like for us as lawyers, I have a law degree. You can never say I'm not a lawyer, but if I don't have my license to practice, I am effectively dead. And for a priest to be removed from the ministry, can't practice ministry, he can't say Mass, he can't hear confessions, he can't teach in schools, he can't have a parish, he can't involve himself in hospital work, that is effectively a capital punishment against him. The policy of the bishops is exactly that. One incident, any time in your life, anywhere in your life, you're out. And this last week, Cardinal George of Chicago went back to Chicago, examined the files, and of course that's a large archdiocese, and immediately removed 6 priests from office.
Removing them from the priesthood, or the ministry, as you say, what effect does that have on what they do? I mean, are they just finished?
Well, they're finished as priests. They may have the law degree, if you will, the priest degree, but they don't have the license to practice. And they'll have to find work. I mean, they're going to have to do what all of us have to do, and that is find a job.
Get a job.
Get a job. But I think the policy needs to be implemented because the agony and the tragedy is so great. The threat to the faithful is so great that I think for the bishops to adopt this policy at this time in history is most appropriate and needed.
Who has to make that decision? Is this something to remove them? Is this something the bishops can do? Does this have to go to Rome? Who makes the decision?
The individual bishops can do that because they work for them. And an individual priest who has a future or a past incident on his resume, so to speak, that person can be removed from the ministry by the bishop himself.
Yeah, let's change the subject.
Yeah, let's switch gears. There's a governor.
Please do.
As you know, there's a governor's race going on to take your place.
Yeah. I understand that.
Yeah, you may have heard about it. There are certain issues that have come up, and without talking about the individual candidates, some of the issues that are being raised, if succinctly in the last minute and a half here, talk about these issues. First of all, free turnpikes. Is that realistic?
Well, if you want to pay off $2 billion in debt, it is realistic. The fact is, these roads, no road is a free road. We need more money for highways. On my watch, we put more money in transportation than ever before. We, with no tax increase and no scandal, over $1 billion in new highway construction. 50% of the turnpike revenue is paid for by out-of-state travelers. And for us in Oklahoma, a relatively poor state, our money right now is being put in the taxpayer-supported roads, and the out-of-state people are paying 50% of the turnpikes. On my watch, we have built no new turnpikes that won't pay for themselves. We finished the Creek, we finished the Kilpatrick. Those will pay for themselves. Those are good roads.
And a lottery. Is that an Oklahoma feature?
Well, I said, you know, as a Catholic, I never saw a game I didn't want to play. I don't have a problem with the lottery. The problem with the lottery, if there is a problem with a small p, is you spin around existing wealth. You don't create any new wealth. What we ought to do is get rid of the income tax or dramatically reduce it. We did pass right to work, get a workers' comp system that's affordable, make schools much tougher, and there'll be no limit to the number of companies that will come here to locate, to expand businesses, and also to locate headquarters.
And we're going to have to have you on another show to discuss.
Well, that's what we want to talk about on the next show, is just those last few words you said.
Okay, we'll have you back next week. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
All right, Kent and I'll be back with a few final words after this. You're watching The Verdict.
Every day, in state governments throughout the country, crucial decisions are being made that affect the lives of children and their families. But as this process takes place, children are often left voiceless. When these children raise their hands to be heard, is anyone listening? There are people listening. They are child advocates. Join us and raise your hand for kids.
Boy Scouts of America, where above all else, character counts.
I enrich our cultural landscape.
I help define our quality of life.
I am one of 4,000 artists in central Oklahoma who receive
support from Allied Arts, this community's united arts organization.
I am an allied artist.
Hello, my name is Ted Smith. I'm president of the board of directors of the Oklahoma Disability Law Center. ODLC provides free legal services in civil matters to people with physical and mental disabilities.
I'm Mike Sykes, Vice President of ODLC. For more information, call 1-800-880-7755.
The Oklahoma Disability Law Center provides high-quality legal services to people with physical and mental disabilities.
And we're back on The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and some final thoughts today on our first discussion with the governor.
The governor is a no-nonsense guy. There's no doubt about it, and I'm sure all Oklahomans understand that. They've lived with his persona for 8 years and gotten to know him well. It will be interesting to see how he serves in his position as chairman of this National Review Board, particularly when he may take some positions, or the board may take some positions that are not necessarily welcomed or accepted by the Catholic clergy. It will be interesting to see how the clergy responds to the governor and how the governor responds to the clergy perhaps not adopting recommendations. But the church is going through some cataclysmic events, and the governor has a track record of being able to respond well in those kinds of circumstances, and I think it speaks very well for the governor and very well for the people of Oklahoma that he's been chosen to assume this position. First, Joe, I want to change the subject just a minute.
Okay.
You come from a sports background. I want to mention an AAU basketball team called the Oklahoma Ultimates.
I know where you're going with this.
The Oklahoma Ultimates is a team of 13-year-old girls from across the state of Oklahoma that played in the Stillwater tournament this couple of weekends ago, and they played in the 15, 16-year-old group, played up, as they say, and won. Won 5 straight games, beat 5 teams, several years older and several inches
Do you know
taller.
anybody on this team?
Oh, I have a casual passing acquaintance with one a girl named Rachel, but I'm not going to bring that up. But the coaches Tim Camphouse and Brad Weller do just a grand job with these girls, and the teams around the state better look out. The Oklahoma Ultimates are coming.
All right. Hey, it was a great first show with the governor. We'll have him on again in our next program. I look forward to that one.
This is a great place.
We'll see you next time on The Verdict.